You have heard of Casio. You have seen it on cheap watches in every drugstore. What you have never been told is what it did to Switzerland. A Swiss watch runs on craftsmanship. A Casio runs on a vibrating crystal, and that difference mattered more than tradition. Once accuracy was all that counted. So, it started winning. In 1970, Switzerland had 90,000 watchmakers. By 1985, 2 out of every 3 of those jobs were gone. This is how a calculator company broke Switzerland's watch industry, and why that same war may be starting again. In April of 1946, a Japanese engineer named Tadao Kashio is trying to keep a small machine shop alive. In a country that has just lost a war and lost almost everything with it, Tokyo is still full of rubble and work is scarce. Kashio started as a lathe operator at 14 years old. But skill does not put food on the table when there is no factory left standing to hire him. So he and his 3 younger brothers, Toshio, Kazuo, and Yukio, start making whatever they can sell. Their first real hit is a ring, a small metal ring that holds a cigarette so a man can keep working with both hands while he smokes it down to the very last inch. Because in post-war Japan, you do not waste anything, not even the last centimeter of a cigarette. They call it the Yubiwa pipe, and it sells well enough that 4 brothers with almost nothing now have a little capital. And capital is the one thing an idea needs before it can become anything at all. Toshio is the brother with the ideas. He sees calculators being used in offices at a business show in Tokyo in 1949, big mechanical machines with cranks and gears, slow and loud, and thinks he can build something better with electricity instead. It takes years and failed attempt after failed attempt, but by 1954, the brothers have built Japan's first electric calculator. 3 years later, in 1957, they officially form Casio Computer Company and release the Model 14A, the world's first compact, fully electric calculator with a single display window instead of 3 and a 10-key number pad, instead of the clumsy full keyboards every other calculator still uses. That one small design choice, the 10-key pad, is the layout every calculator and every phone on Earth still uses today. This is a family business built the way most family businesses are built. Tadao turns rough ideas into things that work with his hands. Toshio is the dreamer. Kazuo has the instinct for what people will buy. Yukio turns Toshio's ideas into products made by the thousands. None of them could have done it alone. Through the 1960s, the calculator business explodes into a brutal price war. Calculators go from a luxury office machine to something a teenager can afford, thanks largely to Casio's 1972 release, the Casio Mini, built for ordinary people instead of businesses. But a war fought entirely on price runs out of room, and Casio needs somewhere else to put its engineering. Here is where the story turns, because the brothers do not look for a new calculator to build. They look at a wristwatch and ask a question nobody in the watch industry had thought to ask. What if a watch did not need a watchmaker at all? The answer was already sitting in Casio's own factories. The chips, the quartz oscillators, the low-power circuits. Everything needed to make a watch was already there, built for calculators. Casio did not need to learn watchmaking. It just needed a smaller box. That is the idea behind the Casio Tron, released in 1974, the world's first digital watch with a fully automatic calendar, one that knows on its own which months have 30 days and which have 31. A Swiss watchmaker spends years training an apprentice to hand finish a balance wheel. Casio just pointed its calculator assembly line at a different product. And this is exactly where Switzerland enters the story, because at the same moment Casio is turning its calculator technology toward wristwatches, an entire nation is about to find out what that means for it. For 3 centuries, Switzerland has been the undisputed capital of watchmaking on planet Earth, not because of marketing, but because of hard-won mechanical mastery, generations passing down the skill to shape a mainspring, a gear train, an escapement, by hand, in small workshops built entirely around this one craft. By 1970, 90,000 people in Switzerland make their living this way. It is not just an industry. It is the identity of an entire region. Here is the part almost nobody knows, and it is the cruelest twist in this whole story. Switzerland built the technology that was about to destroy it, and built it first. Swiss engineers in a research lab in Neuchâtel had a working quartz wristwatch prototype in 1967, 2 full years before Japan's Seiko released the first quartz watch to the public. They had it in their hands, looked at this tiny, humming, mathematically perfect crystal, and decided it was a novelty, not a real watch, not worth threatening centuries of craftsmanship over. That prototype sits in a museum in Switzerland today. They put the weapon aimed at their own heart behind glass instead of on the market. Japan made no such mistake. Seiko releases its quartz watch in 1969, and Casio follows in 1974. Because Casio's whole business is built on driving prices down as fast as possible, it does something Swiss industry cannot bring itself to do. It makes quartz watches cheap. By 1977, Casio has pushed a digital quartz watch below $50. A quartz movement that used to be an expensive marvel now costs only a few dollars to produce. A watch is no longer a mechanical heirloom you save for. It is a $5 object you buy without thinking twice, and it keeps better time than anything Switzerland has ever built by hand. The results are brutal. Swiss watch exports get cut nearly in half. By the middle of the 1980s, Switzerland's share of the global watch market, once over 50%, has collapsed to under 15%. 2 out of every 3 Swiss watchmaking jobs disappear, and entire towns built around this one craft lose their reason for existing. The company that helped do this was not even trying to build the finest watch in the world. It was a calculator company looking for something new to sell. But Casio is not finished. And the next chapter does not come from a boardroom. It comes from an engineer breaking his father's watch. In the early 1980s, a Casio engineer named Kikuo Ibe bumps into a stranger on the street, and the mechanical watch his father gave him when he started high school pops off his wrist and shatters on the pavement. It is not even a Casio, just an ordinary watch, treated the way every watch of that era was supposed to be treated, delicately, like something you were always one careless moment from breaking. EB decides he is done with that. He wants to build a watch that simply cannot break, no matter what you do to it. His bosses give him a small team and a name for the project: Team Tough. Their target is what they call the Triple 10, a watch that can survive a 10-meter fall, hold up under 10 atmospheres of water pressure, and run 10 years on a battery. For 2 years, Ibe and his team build prototype after prototype, and everyone fails. He tests them by carrying them to a bathroom window on an upper floor of the research building and dropping them onto the pavement below. The team passes 200 failed builds and keeps going. At one point, the project is close to being shut down. Then Ibe is walking through a park and sees a young girl bouncing a rubber ball. He watches it hit the pavement and notices something. The outside of the ball takes the full force of every bounce, but the center barely moves at all. That is the answer he had been missing for 2 years. He had been wrapping the watch's inner workings in more and more padding, when what it actually needed was space. Let the module float free inside a hollow case, barely touching the shell, and the shock has nowhere solid to travel through. In April of 1983, after more than 200 prototypes, Casio releases the first G-Shock, a thick, square, unapologetically ugly little watch by the standards of the time, when every other watch on the market was trying to be as thin and elegant as possible. At first, it does not sell. Japan is in the middle of a fashion moment, built around slim, delicate watches, and G-Shock looks like the opposite of everything stylish. Watch repair shops do not want it either, since a watch that never breaks, never needs fixing, and repairs were good business. It takes an American television commercial to change everything. Casio's American division runs an ad showing a hockey player using a G-Shock as an actual hockey puck. People accuse the company of faking it, so a news station tests the claim live, on camera, expecting to catch Casio in a lie. They hit the watch with a hockey stick exactly as shown. The watch survives. It keeps running. In trying to expose Casio, that broadcast becomes the best advertisement the watch could ever ask for. From there, G-Shock becomes something bigger than a product, not through Fashion Week or celebrity deals, but through the streets. Through the mid-1980s and into the 90s, as hip-hop was building itself into the most influential cultural force this country had ever produced, G-Shock was on those wrists. Not because Casio went looking for that audience, because that audience went looking for a watch that could handle a real life. Construction workers, DJs, young men who grew up in neighborhoods where you did not carry anything fragile because fragile things got broken. The G-Shock did not break. Casio later acknowledged that history directly, running campaigns built around turntables, vinyl, boom boxes, and gold chains, because the connection was already there, already real, already decades old. You cannot manufacture that kind of credibility. You can only earn it. And G-Shock earned it by being the toughest thing on the market at a price working people could actually afford. By the 21st century, G-Shock sits in the collections of streetwear labels and museums at once. Casio has sold more than 130 million of them, and every model still has to survive well over 100 torture tests, run on more than 200 machines built just to try to break the thing on purpose. So, think about where this story started. A family with nothing, selling a ring that lets a man finish his cigarette while he keeps both hands on his work. A calculator built to replace a hand crank. A watch built by repurposing calculator chips and pointing them at a smaller target. None of it was made for people with money to spare. All of it was made for people who needed something that simply worked every day without asking for anything in return. Switzerland was building watches for people who could afford to treat them gently. Casio was building watches for everybody else. That is the difference. That has always been the difference. And every time a cheaper, more accurate, more durable technology shows up and asks who a product is actually built for, that question tends to answer itself the same way. The Quartz prototype is still in that Swiss museum. The G-Shock is still on the wrist.